This is Abe Friedtanzer from Movies with Abe, and I'm thrilled to be speaking with Madeline Grey DeFreece, Olivia Peace, and Jess Zeidman about their film Tahara. How are you all doing today?
Doing
Doing
good.
great.
Wonderful. I had a chance to see this film almost 2 years ago at Newfest, and I know that it's actually been around a little longer. That you started, I think, at Slamdance earlier that year. What is it like to finally be coming out in theaters after so long?
Honestly, I'm grateful. I think it's the perfect time for this to be coming out. I think we've all had like some time to grow and learn new stuff too, which has been cool. But yeah, absolutely. I was just saying, January of 2020, I absolutely thought it was our year. Um, Slam Dance went awesome. I was like, yeah, we're off to the races. And then we've had a 2-year hiatus where we played a bunch of festivals, like it went all over the world. But yeah, I'm really excited to bring it back to theaters.
So, what drew each of you? I mean, I know Jess, you wrote it. What inspired you, Jess, and what drew the rest of you to the project?
Yeah, it's a great question. I feel like I've been saying this all the time, so I'm going to make it super quick. I wrote this in college in a class taught by the filmmaker Stephen Cohn about writing the micro budget feature. And with those limitations, I was curious about spaces, like one space I could be in that I would want to share with people. And to me, that was really my Hebrew school. I went to Temple Beth El in Rochester, where we filmed Tahara. In real life, I was a Hebrew school student there for my childhood, and so I thought it would be funny to be like, what happens if we follow people not like in Hebrew school, but like coming back to Hebrew school? And so then the question is always, what brings them back to Hebrew school? I guess in a more positive world, it's a wedding, but in my very angsty 19-year-old screenwriter self, I definitely went with funeral, and so that rocks. And so that was kind of the inspiration, was sharing that facet of my identity with people. Jewish on all sides. I grew up in a very queer family, and it was important to me to like make something but have it be really, people have been using the word provocative a lot, which I love. I love the idea of being provocative. I find myself like a very affable person. So um yeah, but I wanted to try something a little edgy, a little angsty, a little interesting. And I studied playwriting in college, so I really loved the process of working with a director. It's becoming more common that playwrights direct their own stuff, but before, in the 20 teens, no way. No, I'm just kidding. But Olivia was a few years ahead of me in school, and I loved what they made. I thought it was so inventive, and I had a bunch of friends who worked on one of their thesis films called Pangea. Uh, and I remember everyone being like, it was the most fun I ever had on set at Northwestern, which is where we went. And that was like huge compliment, because most sets ended in people being like, did you scratch the floor of the Airbnb? So it was awesome to be like, oh, this person could run a set in college. I'm sure we could make something together. Then famously, I did send Olivia the script to the wrong email address. Even with a full college degree, could not copy and paste. And we finally eventually got in touch by the end of the summer of 2018. And we had a very long phone call about what they enjoyed about the script. And they were one of the few people who I was like, you really see why this should be a movie. You see why this should be something to have fun with and not to treat like really scared and nervously. And you see why like it's not a totally impossible idea to make this happen within the next year of our life. Pandemic aside, we didn't know. But yeah, so that's how I started it, and that's kind of how Olivia got into it, and I'll let them take it from here.
Yeah, I mean, I think reading the script, provocative really is a good word for it. Because it does talk about teen suicide, but it doesn't treat it so. I don't want to say it doesn't treat it so preciously, because it's careful. Like it's not, but I think it honors like what grief really looks like, which isn't so linear. It's a bit messy, and it can be quite cringe, I think, in real life. And I really liked that. Like I'd been to my fair share of funerals of like young people, and just sort of like, I don't know, I really related to it, especially the part where the poor teacher brings out those pamphlets and is like, okay, here we go, kids. This is how we grieve. um, I thought it was well observed. And yeah, again, I thought we could get this made. I think every step of the way, I really underestimated the time on this. I every step of the way was like, yeah, this is gonna be like what, 2 months, 3 months tops. And so I think it was some of that like youthful ambition and I think naivete that kind of got us to where we're at. Which yeah, I love that experimentation all the way. And then we found Madeline.
Yes, Madeline enters the group chat. So yeah, I auditioned for the role of Carrie. It was sent to my actor inbox, and I was like, okay, great. And so one of my audition scenes was the scene with Elena and Carrie in the bathroom, and they're talking about Samantha, and both of them are kind of like cracking open this tiny shell. I mean, Elena is this popular girl, and kind of like too cool for school, too cool for Hebrew school, especially, you know, like whatever. And it had this like really awesome, for when I was reading it, it had this awesome moment where I was like, this is so like, when something like this happens, you know, it's like we all grew up together, right? In this Hebrew school and even like secular school in the story. And it's so crazy about like how teenagers, like, yes, like not treating like this teen suicide with so preciously, as kind of Olivia said, but like, you know, we're trying to process grief in the terms of like this filter of like, but like I can be sad about it, but like I can't be too sad or else people might think I whatever. And that really, like, that specificity of this type of grief within this community, within these dynamics of this group of people, was so, I mean, it jumped off the page, and that was something that really interested me and like really drew me into it. And then also I remember I auditioned, I was okay, I got the call back, and I was okay, hold on, I gotta look up the team. And I looked at Olivia's website, and I had seen a lot of their animation, and Pangea, like the trailer for Pangea was on there, and I was like, oh my god, I have to work with this person. Like the way that Olivia sees something and then just puts it on the page, it's really it's really stunning. And I knew that this was going to be like a really beautiful piece of work with Jess's script and Olivia's mind's eye.
Wonderful. And I'll just share my own interest in the film. I wrote a review of the film with Shiva Baby and Minion, two other films at New Fest that were, you know, tangentially Jewish related, but also I was excited during the film to hear a mention of the youth group USY, since that's where my wife Ariel and I met, and I actually worked for USY for a while, you know, while doing this film critic thing on the side. And even more than that, my wife works in the end of life space, and she's actually at a conference right now about end of life. So it's all like very tied together, and it's rare to find something like this. That said, I think a lot of people who know what the word Tahara means probably would not expect this to be the film that they would see. So I guess it's a two-part question of, did you have any concern about having that title that people wouldn't know what it meant? And again, that people might find this film and might be very surprised by what they're seeing.
That's a great question. So the title actually came from Olivia. The original title is even more inside baseball, Judaism being baseball, which was Tahrihim, because I really loved the idea of the shroud and the covering, and I was just very into the whole thing, still am. But Olivia's like, no one's going to be able to say that, because as we've been talking about Pangea, people can never get Pangea. It's crazy. Panga. I love that one. But so we went with Tahara. Tahara, it's like the Hillel thing, but it's like the funny thing where I think it's something to me that invites questioning, and that's what we're asking you to do the whole movie. I think it's so, I don't like, what else would it be called? It's a great question. I'm sure some marketing team could tell us, but this is really something that's like, we took a risk on the title, like we took a risk on the whole film. And it's a very Jewish title because it's a very Jewish movie. So that's kind of like goes with it. I think it becomes easy to have this idea of like, oh, the people, it's really interesting that you brought up like the people who would know that word. And those are the people who want to speak to as much as the people who don't know that word and we want to speak to them. And I think inviting them to take some time with it is kind of a goal of ours. And that kind of came out of that. And oh my gosh, thank you for telling me about you and your wife. That was awesome. That made my
That was
day.
incredible.
I don't think I haven't heard USY, mentioned any movie. And I was just like, wait, did we hear that already? So we went back to make sure that we had heard it correctly.
USY and Nifty Nell. I mean, it was like my whole life. And it's so funny because I was kind of an outsider to that. I didn't do those things because I was so obsessed with theater and theater camp and stuff and like theater extracurriculars. But like all the girls I went to Hebrew school with, like that was their lives. And I heard about it. And I, as the person who didn't go to the conferences and stuff, like I got all the gossip, right? Because I'm like this third party. So, hey, it paid off.
So we don't have too much time left. What has been the most surprising reaction that you've heard or read to the film for each of you?
Oh, that's a good question.
People crying, I think, was surprising at first. I didn't expect that because I think I thought of this as a comedy, and I remember in the edit with Troy watching like different scenes and like laughing a lot. And so I don't know, I'm excited to be in person again because one, it gets a lot of laughs, which is really fun. But then there's this feeling that comes over people towards the end, not going to spoil, but I think it's really devastating, like watching a friendship go south. And I think I've not seen a lot of media that accomplishes that feeling well. And I think ours really lands it. So yeah, that was surprising to me.
Madeline, you want more time to think?
I need more time to think.
You take your time. Something for me that was surprising. We've only ever screened in person one time, and that was at the Slamdance Film Festival in 2020, like Olivia said. And this was the most surprising thing was I'm a huge talk at the screen person, but people really were like, don't do that. Do not do that. Like they were like calling the characters out. And I was like, wow, that's an amazing reaction to have to this movie. Instead of like, they were taking it seriously, but it was more like they were watching a reality TV show than like a really dark, sad story. And so I loved when people got like really, they were talking teams and that was really awesome.
Yeah, everyone's Team Carrie. I'm into it. I was also
Yay.
Team Carrie.
It's funny. Well, yeah, people just, I don't know. That's kind of a dream as a filmmaker is for people to be like, I'm so invested. These characters are real to me in this 80 minutes.
Yes. I think the thing that was the most, it's actually kind of like the opposite of what Olivia said. I think when we're filming it, there are like those funny moments that like, you know, I don't think I really realized like how much of a comedy it was. Like I think when shooting it, I was like, oh, it's a dramedy. Like it's a friendship. Like there's moments and just like but there's so much like brevity in it where it's like, yes, these emotions are serious, but it's like also like those like weird moments that like I didn't even realize kind of like picked up or like that were like really come out like on screen and everything. I didn't realize like how funny a lot of those things were gonna be, but it really does go to show like that like one aspect ratio, like you're looking at this person's entire like scope and it's like just this person, so it's like Olivia kind of mentioned before, like you can't really see this other person's reaction to it. So it's like this person says something like weird and off color, and then you have to like kind of watch them like have the moment like why did I just say that? And like yeah, I didn't realize that it was that funny.
You know what? And like I think it's partially because I was telling you something different than I was telling Rachel on purpose. Like I was telling you that this was a drama, and I was kind of coaching you as though it were a drama because your character was meant to take this whole day very seriously, unlike everyone else. So I think that tension is kind of what ends up coming through in the end that we found in the edit. Really, shout out to Troy, our editor.
Thank you, Troy. We love you.
Wonderful. Well, I hope that people will go see Tahara in theaters at the Quad Cinema in New York City starting June 10th, and that other markets after that. Thank you so much to all of you for taking some time to speak with me, and good luck with this movie.
Thank you so much,
Thank you so
Abe.
much. This is lovely.